Micron is taking money from the American people under bipartisan support, and it is then fucking those people over by killing its consumer-facing line of memory, with its mega-corporate buyers getting priority over the forlorn consumers who themselves footed the bill to pay for their own economic destruction. What they can also do is continue processing your daily computing needs in those data centers while making the hardware impossible for you to buy because you can't fucking afford it because they bought it all. That's where I think this is going. The corruption of the silicon companies is in the open. Micron is in the news for abandoning consumers, but this is bigger than that. The cartel of silicon manufacturers have continued to rake in record tax breaks, government subsidies, and taxpayer money from a populace battered by the unaffordability of basically anything and by rising prices. And all of this is to pass on that money to the manufacturer's own mega corporate customer manufacturers, all praying to their god of money, AI. So while normal people are feeling the walls closing in around them as software as a service looms from data centers hoovering up all the affordable hardware, signaling the end of an era for affordable home computing, all of the eggs are in the AI basket for Micron, which just killed its direct-to-consumer RAM to focus on the bubble of AI. Quote, the AI-driven growth in the data center has led to a surge in demand for memory and storage. Micron has made the difficult decision to exit the crucial consumer business in order to improve supply and support for our larger, strategic, more important, no, it doesn't say that part, customers in faster growing segments, end quote. For consumers, the end result is higher prices on already high prices, less competition in the consumer market, and critically, less pricing suppression coming from a first-party manufacturer of the memory itself, one of 3 that are relevant in the world, and they've just killed their store brand, basically like a supermarket house brand of memory, which was called Crucial. At times, this former consumer-focused brand of Crucial meant that there was more competitive pricing than some of the customers of Micron, who buy Micron memory and glue it to their own self-branded heatsinks and sticks alongside the likes of SK Hynix and of Samsung. Those 3 collectively form basically the entire market for this supply. This seemingly panicked decision comes just 8 months into the craziest of the AI demand. We question whether Micron is actually killing this for the stated reason of excessive AI demand, requiring more chip supply, as opposed to retconning a reason, and AI washing its closure of the business unit Crucial and inevitably getting rid of a lot of the staff who probably worked there. But then, if you look at Micron as a whole, they're actually doing pretty well. So maybe they're not AI washing a bad quarter. Micron is actually doing amazingly as it capitalizes on the destruction of the consumer market and works with data centers to suck in all of the hardware to continue to move computers and the ownership of them into the cloud for software as a service models. Micron's stock started the year at $87.33 and peaked at $253.30, a climb of 190% to that point. About 2 weeks ago, Micron's stock suddenly plunged to $201, but that was still up significantly on the year. As we write this, the end of trading after its announcement had it at $234. Again, that's from 87 on January 1st. For even more perspective, switching to the maximum scale shows us that pre-COVID Micron stock was around $40 to $50. As for why we're talking about the stock price, it's because it's the only fucking language these people understand. The executives don't know anything else. To them, this is a job well done, even though we're barreling towards the end of easy ownership of computers at home. High-end computing in the home has been democratized by prices, and that is starting to go away in a very serious fashion. These greedy companies, with NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang at the helm, while he shoves his hand up the US government's ass for his next award-winning puppet show, are doing their best to de-democratize silicon and pull it out of the hands of the consumers to shove it into their data centers. And just if you don't know, Micron is a supplier of VRAM that goes into GPUs as well. We think the end game here is that they'll charge you to use this stuff in the cloud. If you want 128 gigabytes of RAM on a computer to run a calculation, but you can't afford the 250% higher price, then good news, you'll be able to rent it remotely for just some money every month. Forever. We're actually working on a deep dive into the DRAM cartel right now because our AI dystopia Kickstarter style campaign on our store hit our stretch goal, which means the DRAM cartel coverage will join our series of upcoming reports on the reckless expansion of data centers and AI companies. You can join to support our campaign and coverage series at store.gamersnexus.net, where our various backer tiers include things like our censored speech vaporwave smiley t-shirt, our new retro IO themed drink coaster packs, in some of the tiers with soft rubberized material and unique component theming, and all backers will even get a USB copy of some of our upcoming videos on a physical 128GB USB drive, just in case we get Bloomberged again. Although if we do, we also have our video unavailable t-shirt. Other backer rewards include bonus videos, a small group Q&A session with me in the highest tier, and a signed mouse mat for that one. We're still putting together our deep dive into the memory industry, so check back for that. For now, head over to store.gamersnexus.net to support our upcoming series that we're launching in multiple videos over the next 3 months. We're going to have some pretty heavy commentary towards the end here today, but we'll start with the basics and the statement. So Micron is one of just 3 relevant global suppliers for memory. It's Samsung and SK Hynix in South Korea and Micron in the United States. These companies sell their DRAM and their flash components to other companies that you might be familiar with, like Corsair, G.Skill, Kingston, Team Group, and so forth. Memory suppliers have previously been convicted of price fixing and of fraud. And this has been attempted again in the time since, but it goes back as far as decades ago now. These days, they've fixed that problem by not colluding to fix prices, by instead doing it publicly. So it's not like a private behind closed doors price fixing agreement and a handshake between CEOs now. Now they just talk about it in their earnings reports. So other than these 3 suppliers, the entire rest of the memory industry is made up by less than 6% of other companies as of a couple years ago, and probably even a lower percent for that other category now. Before we really tear into this, let's read the full statement from Micron. Quote, Micron Technology, a leader in innovative memory and storage solutions, today announced its decision to exit the crucial consumer business, including the sale of crucial consumer-branded products at key retailers, e-tailers, and distributors worldwide, end quote. Just to jump in for a second here, but corpo PR spin starting with, we're leaders in innovation, and ending with, so we're giving up. What did Jensen Huang say?
Clever, I guess.
That's it. Now, as we read this next paragraph from Micron, it's important to remember that Micron is an NVIDIA supplier. Quote, the AI-driven growth in the data center has led to a surge in demand for memory and storage. Micron has made the difficult decision to exit the crucial consumer business in order to improve supply and support for our larger strategic customers in faster growing segments, end quote. And this was a subquote by Sumit Sadana, EVP and Chief Business Officer at Micron Technology, who again says that the plan is to focus on faster growing segments. So first of all, fuck you. And secondly, at least Micron is clear with their intentions, which is that Micron doesn't care about consumers anymore. They only want to sell to the big companies in the high growth AI space. Now you might be quick to point out that Micron didn't say anywhere in this press release that it stopped selling consumer memory completely. They said they're killing Crucial, which is their house brand of memory, the sticks. And the plain English interpretation of their statement is that the consumer segment is not fast growing enough. And quote, strategic customers in faster growing segments, end quote, is the focus. To us, that doesn't just mean Crucial. It indicates anyone in AI and data center getting priority over even their other customers. To us, this signals a drawdown in supply for consumer in general from Micron. And remember, a lot of the price fixing problems and illegality are solved by not doing it privately and behind closed doors, but instead announcing it to your competitors. And just to be clear, I'm making this point purely for purposes of illustrating a literary point on historical context, and I'm not actually suggesting that they are actively price fixing or committing fraud. I am not suggesting that any of the memory manufacturers are actively committing fraud. That is not what I am suggesting. I'm just making a point about the past where there were convictions of fraud, but I'm not suggesting that's happening now, okay? All right, let's move on. Here's the rest of the spin. Quote, thanks to a passionate community of consumers, the Crucial brand has become synonymous with technical leadership, quality, and reliability of leading-edge memory and storage products. We would like to thank our millions of customers, hundreds of partners, and all of the Micron team members who have supported the Crucial journey over the last 29 years. This decision reflects Micron's commitment to its This decision reflects Micron's commitment to its ongoing portfolio transformation and the resulting alignment of its business to secular, profitable growth vectors in memory and storage. By concentrating on core enterprise and commercial segments, Micron aims to improve long-term business performance and create value for strategic customers as well as stakeholders, end quote. So once again, as if to dismiss the 3 spin doctors that we've seen on Reddit, Micron clearly states that it is concentrating on enterprise and business. The rest of the statement reads, quote, Micron intends to reduce impact on team members. Just to be clear, not eliminate, they say reduce impact on team members due to this business decision through redeployment opportunities into existing open positions within the company, end quote. Now, we already covered a lot of what's happening in the DRAM industry and in system memory with our RAM What the Fuck video. So again, if you've been wondering what's been going on with RAM, specifically the fuck, then we'll link that video below. The quick recap is that in some instances, within a span of just about 14 days, we saw kits of memory skyrocket in price by double-digit percentages. In a span of about 30 to 60 days, several kits of consumer memory launched upwards in price by 150 to 200%. That has continued to go up in the couple weeks since our report. Checking Crucial's 32 gigabytes or 2x16 gigabyte kit of DDR5 6000 CL36 memory, we found this price trend chart from PC Part Picker. About 120 days ago, this kit was $85 at Best Buy and B&H Photo. By October 20th, that had climbed to $122 and retailer Adorama lost supply. By November 3rd, it increased to $182, so 114% from our reference point. As of today, it's $274. This RAM was $85 just 120 days ago. That's a 222% increase in price in 120 days, or in other words, an average of 1.85% per day increase. This 128 gigabyte kit was $300 and is now $964 at Best Buy and B&H, an increase of 220%, or if you prefer, a 3.2x increase. This is something a home workstation user might have relied upon for things like CAD engineering, Blender, video production, 3D modeling, game development, whatever. Now it's moving away from solo operative affordability and back into the realm of only corporate buyers. And it's not alone. This kit of 128 gigabyte DDR5 5600 was $420 and is now the result of smoking it at $1,000 on Newegg. And on the affordable consumer side, this kit of 32 gigabytes DDR5 5600 CL46, basically some of the worst memory you could buy, was $83 and is now $261, or an increase of 214%. This Crucial Pro OC DDR5 6000 CL36 kit was $90 and is now $300, up 230%. This kit was $43 and is now $118, thoroughly screwing the consumer of lower-end budget parts. And that's without getting into laptop SODIMM memory, where Crucial is a prevalent and had been an important force. These companies are fucking over normal people. It's been happening for a while now, yes, but not like this. Now it's in the open. The corruption of the silicon companies is in the open. In our opinions, not only is our technocracy wrought with what we think is open corruption and conspiracy against consumers to consolidate and move this computing power into data centers and so-called AI, but also open with the United States government. Now, this story started about Micron, but it's sort of about everybody in the industry. NVIDIA reportedly gave $10 million to the Trump ballroom around the time it was in discussions about its export-controlled GPUs. That's without getting into its nearly $4 million in lobbying, such as for AI lawmaking, which, again, AI is where Micron is focusing. Intel CEO got cucked by the president when he was publicly mocked and ridiculed, and just days later sold 10% of the company to the United States government as if through some kind of public humiliation fetish. AMD CEO Lisa Su has joined other tech billionaires like Gates, Zuckerberg, and OpenAI's Sam Altman in frequently joining US government meetings to make decisions that we think fuck over the little guy next. Micron is just the next step in all of this. They write their press release in just the right way. where a few corporate bootlickers can defend them on Reddit by saying technically they're only exiting the crucial memory business and not consumer as a whole. But their motives are clear, and they're not really hiding them. We bring up the government because Micron has facilities in the United States, and they are frequently name-dropped on White House press releases. In June of 2025, the White House boasted of Micron's $200 billion of planned investment into fabs and R&D, such as in Idaho, where Micron says it's investing billions in domestic R&D. Micron said it's working on a mega fab in New York, further stating it intends to produce 40% of its DRAM in the United States. Micron Chairman, President, and CEO Sanjay Mehrotra stated, quote, "We are grateful for the support from President Trump, Secretary Lutnick, and our federal, state, and local partners who have been instrumental in advocating domestic semiconductor manufacturing," end quote. And in the year of 2025, the PDA displayed between Micron and the US government would probably require an ID to view in 25 states. In fact, that Micron press release included quotes from CEOs Satya Nadella of Microsoft and Jensen Huang of NVIDIA, with the only difference being who's shoved their head up the ass of the government versus who has their hand up it. All of this might be because Micron took $275 million in additional funding from the United States government, part of the CHIPS Act disbursements that were promised under Biden and have continued to go out under Trump. In its latest 10-K form, Micron said it had received up to $6.4 billion in CHIPS Act grants across 2 administrations. Micron even gets local and state tax breaks, reportedly worth up to $2 billion on construction materials and property in New York alone, while normal people struggle to pay property taxes on their homes. Micron spends millions of dollars on lobbying, including more than $4 million in 2022 during the Biden administration and $3 million in 2025 during the second Trump administration. This year, Micron lobbied for higher manufacturing tax credits, which passed as a part of a federal spending bill and increased an investment tax credit on advanced semiconductor manufacturing from 25% to 35%. Micron CEO was gleeful, given the huge jump. Micron actually has paid tribute to the government a lot recently in exchange for tax breaks. Micron donated $1 million to the Presidential Inauguration Committee in January and gave an undisclosed sum of money for the new $300 million White House ballroom. Now, on the day when Micron killed Crucial, Micron's CEO met with the Secretary of Commerce to talk about, presumably, the American AI tech stack. Micron's exchange of government favors has spanned both the Biden and the Trump administrations. The point is, it doesn't matter which of these presidents you hate the least or which one you think is the sleepiest. At the end of the day, Micron is taking money from the American people under bipartisan support, and it is then fucking those people over by killing its consumer-facing line of memory, while also, we think, failing to pay its fair share. These subsidies from the government to build fabs and do R&D come from taxpayer money. Look, if only out of the proportionality of the impact, and not because these mega corporations rarely pay their fair share anyway, this money is being taken from the taxed people of the United States, passed through the US government, and into one of a triopoly of mega corporations that controls an industry. It then is passing on that consolidated power into the hands of the even fewer, with its mega corporate buyers getting priority over the forlorn consumers who themselves footed the bill to pay for their own economic destruction. Micron is just a microcosm here for what's happening right now, which is a reverse Robin Hood. These companies are taking from the many and they're giving to the even fewer to then take from the many again and circulate that money in a giant fucking circle like we talked about on the GNCA channel. All of this is without even getting into SSD prices. For those who don't know, the fabs responsible for manufacturing the silicon found in memory sticks often are the fabs that manufacture flash for use in solid-state storage devices, which are in anything that can retain non-volatile data, like your phone or your computer. So it's no surprise that this industry is next. Crucial's SSDs have started to reflect pricing changes already. The T705 2TB drive was $200, and just after the announcement, it skyrocketed to $265. The T500 was more widely available and was $150 on Newegg, but is now $190 on Newegg and $250 at Best Buy. Although some SSD prices are still stable, like first-party supplier Samsung's 1TB 990 Pro price, or its 9100 Pro price, some of the companies buying supply are increasing prices. MSI's 1TB M480 went up from $65 to $90, an increase of 38% in 120 days. In case that was a fluke, Western Digital's SN8100 2TB drive has started to show a climb in price, now $250 from $220 120 days ago. Teams G50 has gone up to $200 on Newegg, up from $106 3 months ago. The PNY CS900 2TB SSD, that's highly ranked on Newegg, is now $153, up from $100 3 months ago, a 53% increase. The memory industry has been described as a, quote, cartel by prosecutors and by the justice system decades ago. And that's interesting, because the government has made clear what it thinks should happen to cartels. But there's one kind of cartel that doesn't get bombed from orbit: corporate. And in our opinions, they're still acting like a cartel. That's what we think. For this particular kind of cartel, it seems the bipartisan decision is to shovel as much money into it as possible. That money may have come from taxpayers using unmaintained infrastructure and struggling to pay for healthcare. But as long as stock line go up, everything is according to plan. And frustratingly, these facts have pretty much always been true throughout the entire existence of a taxpayer-funded economy. It's not news. But what feels particularly bad about this one is the fact that, in the very least, for normal people, it felt like it was money being given to a company that would at least sell its shit to consumers and hopefully help create a competitive market in the system that we have. And now they're saying they don't care about that anymore for at least their own division. Memory is in everything. In a recent report from South Korean publication SE Daily, one line of Samsung phones was cited as having its memory cost doubling, which will be passed on to consumers. You don't even have to build gaming computers to notice the memory pricing impact. The memory industry's changes will be felt by everybody. Micron abandoning consumers is just the literal manifestation of what's already happened silently. Anyone who buys a phone, a refrigerator, a car, a smartwatch, a smart lock, a computer, a laptop, a tablet, any of these things that have memory in it, you will be affected in some way by the price. This will be universal for basically anyone who buys modern electronics. All of these things will be affected by the memory industry as it abuses its consolidated power to chase the illusory promise of a two-lettered intelligence. There's no high note to end on here. There's no positive side to this. There's no optimistic outcome of what Micron and these other companies are actively doing and we think conspiring to do. Micron is the first of many to signal its abandonment of normal people. This isn't just about consumers now. Like, this is stuff that everybody needs in their daily life if you're living in any kind of modern society where you might need to interact at some point with an electronic device. And if you're someone who uses electronics, this is going to affect you, and it will do so increasingly. We are at the point, I think, where it's beyond simply just moving software like Adobe Photoshop to a cloud-based system so you can't buy it anymore, you have to use a license indefinitely, and now moving everything into those systems. They call it AI today. And today, that's what they're chasing. It's LLMs and whatever the fuck they think that's gonna do at the end of the road for when AI becomes profitable for these companies. But if that doesn't work out, or in the event it actually does and they wanna substitute more revenue in there, then software as a service remains a viable option for data centers. That's what they're set up to do. So they might process a search query on ChatGPT today, or a request for ChatGPT erotica from Sam Altman himself in the future, but what they can also do is continue processing your daily computing needs in those data centers while making the hardware impossible for you to buy because you can't fucking afford it because they bought it all. That's where I think this is going, and it is infuriating to see. There's no positive I can take away from this. I think the only lever consumers have that they can pull is to stop buying. But it doesn't work that way. Like, organizing a boycott is difficult, rarely has successes, and people still need this stuff to live. So it's not always an option. It's not that simple, especially considering the greedy data centers are happy to buy whatever you don't. They don't care. All the money's imaginary anyway. It's all investor money. It flows in a circle. So it's gonna be there for them, whether or not it's there for you. That's all we have to say about this one. You can support us on the store. You go to store.gamersnexus.net if you want to support our AI dystopia series of coverage coming up. Subscribe for more. Thanks for watching. Sorry to deliver the news. This is fucking. All right, we'll see you all next time.